TJ, the amazing atheist, went on. Apparently, it's called Sitch and Adam. I don't know. The Adam Friended and PSA Sitch. These are two. These are two guys that are not terribly good faith. And they wanted to talk about trans ideology with TJ Kirk, and he titled this episode "Attempting to Communicate with Adam and Sitch," which sounds like a Sisyphean task. I have heard that this is pretty fun to watch for a second, so we'll see what happens. We're going to watch as much of this as I can. As much of it as I can. I haven't watched one of these discussions in a minute. It's feeling good.
Yeah, sure.
Also, look. Maybe it's hypocritical about the corn suit stuff. Although I'm not in the corn suit right now, so it's not. This is cringe to me. He can live however he wants. God, though.
Sitch, do you want know what you want to talk about, or
I'm going.
Okay.
Hey now, it's your boy PSA Sitch here with another Sunday stream with everyone's favorite harmonica and lighting enthusiast, Adam Friended.
What's up? How you doing?
Hello.
We have a very special guest today. Did you notice?
I did.
I've actually never watched one of their fucking streams. Is this how they start? I know it says comedy show host, immune system for society. They have like a little like a graphic novel they're doing together. I don't know, man. This feels this feels dumb. Yeah, he's got a rant sona. I don't know. There's a rant sona and a guy with the deal with it shades. And they're gonna say a lot of dumb shit. I'm glad TJ's here though. I'm excited to see how this goes.
You notice we have a very special guest. Who's our very special guest?
TJ Kirk, the amazing atheist.
100% of their own volition. Yeah, this is a choice.
How you doing, TJ?
Pretty good. I'm looking at your guys' post here on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm reading the comments. Antonio C. I'm not a fan of TJ, so I'm skipping a day. Well, they can't all be shows for me. Have fun. Oh shit, TJ. This is from Christian Baller.
Uh-huh.
Oh shit, this is gonna be good. TJ's been posting insane shit recently. The only word I object to is recently.
What is the insane shit you've been posting recently?
It's true.
I don't know. Prepare for bad faith from TJ. He's on a roll of it recently.
Bad faith.
If I'm bad faith, then everyone else is evil faith. Because
that might be a good place to start.
I'm the last bastion of honesty on this godforsaken site. So fuck you.
Whoa! The second
currently on the same grift as actual fandom and organized chaos.
What?
I don't know.
Goodness. Oh my goodness.
I vaguely know who actual fandom is. I think I might actually been on that, maybe.
Never heard of that in my life.
No,
I don't think you have. They're
organized chaos. I don't know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
Always makes for good content for you and Sitch though. Good for the lols. Oh no, LMAO. Who? These guys bringing the pain lately. How's old BJ Cuck doing? Hey, just because a conga line of black men fuck my wife in front of me every night while I cry.
Oh my God, TJ, okay? No.
But I do. BJ is fine because I do suck them all off afterwards. So
no,
there you go.
Fair enough.
Gotta keep it clean and tidy.
Fair. That part's fair. Oh, sorry.
Keep it clean and tidy. Oh, they want to be monetized?
Trying to get monetized this shit? My bad.
Well, I guess. Well, we were monetized a minute ago, but that's
These
okay.
videos never get monetized.
Nah, you're fucked now. You ain't getting monetized, bitch.
Well, I guess you could say that TJ is not
bad.
worried about you hurting his feelings.
They attach to the
I
other
mean, how
one.
can you hurt a guy who's just watching?
Why is he choosing these?
I'm
Is this something that is inflicted on him, or is he choosing this in the call?
fucking hurt deep down inside. What are you talking about? Every single one of those is like a dagger into my fucking heart, man.
So you're so it's into the pain, huh? Oh my God, no.
Sad. No, yes.
He goes and
yes,
catches
TJ.
them. He's literally going to catch them with his face on purpose. So never mind.
That okay, bad faith. We were talking about bad faith.
All right, yeah, bad faith. Let's do it.
Yeah, because bad faith, I feel like so
What does
already.
that mean?
I know. Look, you insinuated though that bad faith meant dishonest, which is one of the things that
All right, here's my understanding. If I can,
go ahead.
put it out there, just like we can have, like, you tell me if you agree with this definition or not.
Okay.
So when it comes to good faith or bad faith, good faith to me is like, I'm gonna enter this conversation, willing to hear the other person out, willing to listen to their perspective, willing to change my mind. That to me is good faith.
That's
bad
totally
faith
good
is
faith.
like,
yeah.
Bad faith is like, I'm not gonna listen to what they say. Any words that come at me, I'm gonna distort them however I can. You know, so that to me is bad faith.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I don't know, is that right? Is that wrong?
Well, I would say that good faith to me, it doesn't mean that necessarily that you're going to go in there with the ability that you think your mind's going to change. I mean, I think you should always.
I've never heard this guy talk for a long period of time. I don't know. He's just dweebier than I thought he'd be.
that, but
Well, I like his definition though. It's,
Well,
at least we have the opportunity.
I don't know about
I just add to it. I think I look at it more like you're going to be honest in the
I actually really didn't think
conversation. You're going to try to actually understand what they're saying and not just like
Sure.
try to twist it around in the most bad faith dunkable clip moment possible.
So what you're saying is you want to.
I've literally never seen these guys not try to do that. My only interactions with them are failed attempts at dunking on people.
Exterminate all the non-Jews.
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Okay,
Listen, the goy have been too long, too uppity in our society. They need to be put in their place.
Sitch is Jewish, by the way. So
I know that's why I said
That's
all the
why he
non.
said it.
That's why I said all the
Don't.
non-Jews.
Yeah.
Don't.
If he wasn't Jewish, I would have said all the Jews.
Yeah.
Oh, you said the goyim though, didn't you, Sitch?
Goyim is non-Jew.
Right, you're going after us now. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Holy
What do you mean
cow.
now?
Look, I think we
He's
just
al-
had a
it's always been his
Scott Adams
plan.
moment on the show here. Sitch just went full mask off.
I need to turn this. I need to make
Scott
this
Adams didn't go
faster.
far
Holy
enough,
fucking
okay?
shit, man.
Jews are a hate group, and we all just need to stay away from them. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. Okay. Now listen. Okay. Cancel. Now you're only
That's
I'm
what
allowed
I'm
to say it as the oppressed minority. You're not allowed.
Hey, wait, bullshit. I did my ancestry.com. I have like 0.6% Ashkenazi Jew. It's
No,
fine.
doesn't count.
That's Jewish enough. It's Jewish enough.
No, not according to Jewish bylaws.
Oh shit. How Jewish do I have to be?
39. Yep. Your mom
Jewish-
has to be full Jew.
Oh shit.
That's not how I am either. Not-
Are you even circumcised, TJ?
No.
What
I'm
are we
not.
doing?
Well, then get
I'm
out.
watching this.
Super nice.
We gotta go. All right.
They're gonna have a conversation
So we
at some
want to
point.
talk
It's gonna
about
start.
politics and science. Obviously,
It's
you
happening.
came up in YouTube as like probably the most prominent anti-theist on the platform, and I'm. It's difficult for me because I myself am an atheist, but I'm not an anti-theist. So the distinction is
Sure.
important to me. Like I think anti-theists believe the world would be a better place without religion. That's
Yes.
like the core ideology that motivates them. I don't think the world would be a better place without religion as it is. I think the world is getting more and more irreligious as people get richer and richer because somehow, wealth has this way of making us not worry about
Wealth? No. Education.
things
Definitely
in the way
education,
that religion
not
often
wealth.
satisfies people in. So, as someone who's watched your content, from way back in the day, I've kind of always wanted to have a conversation with you about religion and politics because a lot of times, and we talk about this on the show all the time, we see the current state of politics as being kind of
It's a bold
of
statement.
a secular religion. Like people are using ideologies that are very much kind of religious, but they don't have a belief in God or the supernatural or any of that stuff. So, but psychologically, I don't necessarily see a difference. So and obviously you were reading some of the things.
Psychologically. It's interesting that someone being politically convicted is twisted to make it sound like it's in any way informed in the way that religion is, and that's just like brain dead stuff in my opinion. Like only someone in bad faith would say that. This is what I'm saying. I can't imagine someone I don't know, just the framing of that just sounds fucking terrible to me.
Things like you post stuff on
I have a disagreement with the initial, like, even how it's framed.
line, and we go back and forth on Twitter from time to time, but it's difficult for me. I look at some of the things you post and I think, well, that's a religious statement, and this is the amazing atheist. So it seems kind of like a contradiction to me. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit. But
Sure. I guess to zero in on something, when you're talking about religious belief
What do you
versus religious dogma, and then of course there can be secular dogma.
Right.
There can be ideas that are very dogmatic, or not necessarily ideas themselves that are dogmatic, but there can be systems of ideas that are like broadly dogmatic, and you see that when someone steps out of line with those ideas, they're treated in the same way like a heretic might be from a religion or something.
Sure, totally.
Right.
But so dogma, and I mean, I like I said, I'm an atheist. I used to watch the atheist community all the time. You know, I remember Atheism Plus and all that stuff that you were a part of. And I just
Well, I was never part of Atheism Plus.
I was never part of Atheism Plus either.
But
right. But you responded to Atheism Plus. I mean, you did.
Sure,
I
yeah.
did a video. I mean, I think it was called like the complete destruction of Steve Shive. I think Steve Shives tried to start the Atheism Plus stuff, and you kind of went like that. Get away from me with that.
that was PZ Myers and
yes, yeah.
Skepchick, and I think Steve Shives might have been part of it too. Yeah, there was a number of people that were doing the more Atheism Plus thing, which was, to my point of view, it was just like, let's give atheism dogma. And I don't think atheism should have a dogma. I think it should be pretty simply just the rejection of the existence of a deity, or at least the disbelief in a deity. But as far as other ideologies go, I mean, I think anti-theism by necessity has to have a dogma. Like any sort of system that's much more complex than being a single statement kind of inherently falls into some level of dogmatism.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I agree with TJ here. I don't think having a set of convictions that you adhere to because they're correct is at all the same in adhering to the dogmas of a religion that the dogmas are not informed by anything, right? Like cut the foreskin off of your child is not an informed decision the Bible makes about foreskins. You know what I'm saying? But like, the world would be better without religious people cutting the foreskins off of their children without their consent. Yeah, that sounds like a better world. Like, just to not have them around,
right? Because if you're gonna have a belief structure, there have to be multiple beliefs within that structure. And if you're going to unite with others, let's fight for these beliefs that we hold together. Then there kind of has to be like, well, how much can someone deviate from what we believe before they're no longer really part of our group? If we're advocates for this idea,
right? No,
I think dogmatism is kind of a necessary social adhesive for groups to function coherently with one another. If you want to reject that, I think you have to almost become a complete individualist and just join with particular causes on a case-by-case basis, but don't actually have a sort of like tribal unit or group or whatever you want to call it.
Well, no, I love that you're actually saying this, because it's, dogma is not necessarily just categorically bad. Like, you need certain dogmas. Like, tell the truth is a dogma, right? Be honest is a dogma.
Reno Redhead, thanks for the 95 biddies. They just tuned in. How's TJ doing here? Is he winning? I mean, they're just having a conversation right now.
In our society, free speech is kind of a dogma in our society. Anti-racism, being against people who are openly racist, that's kind of a dogma in our society. Now,
Sure.
I don't. My thinking though is that you have to kind of get the dogma right. Like right now, just with and I think we sparred on Twitter over the trans stuff. Like
there's trans stuff. Here's where it becomes more.
This saying that people are constantly saying trans women are women, and I see it's like it's an attempt to make that a kind of dogma in our society. And there's a lot of people that are pushing back and saying, no, that's not our societal dogma. We don't think it should be. And I'm curious if you have a take on how we come up with this dogma, because
it's not. I mean, trans women are women can be dogma. I mean, God, to call that dogma. I think ascribing terms like dogma are attempts to delegitimize ideas. I only think you use that language when you're trying to talk and use street cred with other atheists for your shady beliefs, and you start to be like, well, you're in the religion now, aren't you? Like, I never see it used in any kind of good faith whatsoever. Anti-trans motherfuckers can't stop thinking about us, literally bring us up unprompted constantly, literally all the time. I mean, I would say that the act of being anti-trans is infinitely more dogmatic than anyone else that's pro-trans. Like, I don't think my audience is largely trans. Look at all of them. I mean, we have pride flags in the damn display. It's not because I'm trans. It's not because I'm Ace Flux. It's because people require solidarity, and I'm going to give it to them. God damn it. Anyway, like, I don't think about the dogma of trans women are women when I see a trans woman facing abuses. Like, I can't describe this enough. Someone's transness means nothing to me. Nothing. Like, I do not have a value on anyone's identity. I have a value on them. Their identity is an aspect of the alchemy that makes them themselves, right? So I only value anyone
It has
individually.
To do.
No one has to be trans for me to value them, but they can be, and I will also value them. It's their conduct that matters. It's all the other shit. And now someone like Adam Friend would be like, yes, that's what we're saying. Just don't treat them special. And it's like, no. But you're treating them poorly. You're not just not treating them special. You're treating them poorly. I treat everyone poorly, I can hear from the crowd. It's just jokes, just japes. Everyone should be able to take some No, these are systemic abuses. And if you disagree with that, then you have to fucking back that up, because it's obvious that there's systemic abuses socially, which is the chief one, and then also institutionally and systemically. Like, trans women are women is so much less dogmatic than when you're buried 1,000 years in the future, you'll be identified as your birth sex. Therefore, you're not what you identify as. The bones! Thank you, Y2. Yasmin with the 100 biddies. Yes, I agree. Like, who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? They won't be able to identify my body because I'm gonna be launched into the sun. So it doesn't fucking matter what my bones look like.
Because that's kind of the realm of politics.
The way I would view it on that issue is, there are these sort of behavioral and expectation-laden packages that are foisted upon you when you're born with a certain set of genitalia. Where it's like, okay, you have a penis, you're a boy, you got to act this way, you got to do these things, you have to meet up to these social expectations. Okay, you have a vagina, you're a girl, same thing.
Fucking true.
In the opposite direction. And I think that a lot of people, they kind of look at, hey, look at this other set of social expectations that are foisted upon this group. That seems more like where I'd want to be. And some people can just go to the level of like, well, I'm not going to like change my gender or anything, but I'm just going to live more like that. Whereas other people, maybe they are also envious of like the body or whatever the hell. But as far as I'm concerned, I view gender as a complete and utter construct. So I just feel like people should just be allowed to do it. I don't think anything should be gender coded. I don't think blue should be for boys and pink should be for girls. I don't think there's a particular clothing item or fashion accessory that should be connoted to one or the other. I just feel like people should be free to make whatever choices best suit them and make whatever sort of adjustments to their physical form they can possibly do with the technology available to us, and so on and so forth.
I agree. I'm still waiting for Terse to answer what sex one of the Earth's oldest bones is. A jawbone? Maybe they'll find out.
So, I mean, like, ultimately, at the end of the day, to me, I'll agree with the term trans women are women because I don't believe women is a thing beyond the subjective. I believe there is a female sex and a male sex, obviously. But as far as, like, the presentation of gender, like, I wear a dress and I wear lipstick and all that shit, I feel like that's all just made up.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like that's completely subjective.
Mm-hmm. I think I have two questions from what you said. The first is, so when you're talking about like, I mean, I agree obviously that there are gendered expectations that society foists upon people.
Sure.
But
hard to deny that.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, yeah, some people would try to deny it, but
Some people would try to deny that. They would be fools. Don't try it.
do you not
Really?
think that any aspect of like what we'd call gendered behavior, you don't think any aspect of that is biological?
Oh, sure, of course it is.
Oh, okay. I sound like you were saying you didn't think that.
No, I mean, well, but the problem is that, there's so
gives
many
a
exceptions
shit?
to every rule. Even if
But the problem is, who gives a shit? If your biological compunction is to act a certain way, then that's what it is. But obviously, someone else's biological compunction is to act a different way. Their brains are biological. Okay, I don't give a fuck. Yes. Irrelevant. It has no bearing on the topic.
you could say like, hey, male sex people are more predisposed to this kind of behavior.
But you can't tell them
And
they
female
have to.
sex people are more predisposed to this kind of behavior. That doesn't mean that like that behavior is inherently of that sex, because you can definitely find people that are female sex that are doing the male sex behaviors and vice versa.
Mhm.
You know, this is like tomboys and, you know, sissy guys and whatever the fuck, right? So like that exists. So, you know, there's no really beyond just like genitalia and some chromosomal shit and like a few differences in like brain, you know, like there's a few physical things that separate the sexes, right? There's no denying that.
Mhm.
But like behaviorally, both sides can run a gigantic spectrum of behaviors. Both sides can run a gigantic spectrum of preferences. There's really like infinite overlap. So like to make a social distinction of this is male, this is female, doesn't really make sense to me.
Yep.
Well, I sort of agree with what you're saying, but I think it's important.
Imagine treating people as individuals, not as a group of animals to be penned. No. Everyone needs to fit under my umbrella. My terms are the ones, okay? If you're a man, okay, you have to like the Detroit Pistons, you have to be able to cook like a motherfucker, and you have to be a quality pussy eater. And if you're not those things, you're not a man. And those just so happen to describe me and my standards for myself.
Because like it's not a coincidence. It's not just social conditioning when you say like, oh,
And you also have to be subscribed immediately, please. And if it's tier 3, I like it a lot. Tier 3, you will never be a Pistons fan, then you'll never be a man. You'll never be a real man. They'll look at your bones and they'll be like, there's no man here. Or something. They'll look in your crypt. They'll look in your pyramid under your pharaoh resting place. And they won't see a single piece of Pistons paraphernalia. And they will say, no man was here.
The majority of people that commit violent crimes are all men.
Sure.
I mean, we look at, testosterone obviously has a big effect on aggression. And yeah, like, what you like, yes, men and women, I believe, on average, of course, can be predisposed to having certain gender behaviors. Obviously, this doesn't include everyone, nor should it mean that as a society, we should make determinations where we say, oh, you have to, if you're a man, you have to, be like all this, gendered preference behavior that the average man has, or the same thing for women. So I agree that that shouldn't be like a prescription. But I think it's important as a description, because I think we get into this area where, like, people will look at certain fields, especially like the job field, the career field, and they'll say, oh, women aren't making as much as men, so therefore it must be, they jump to the conclusion, it must be there's some form of sexism that's, preventing women from doing this. And if you actually kind of like break it down and look into it, it's like, well, it just seems like on average, men and women are making different choices. I'd argue those choices are mostly biological, and that can be the explanation.
I mean, it's
a
kind
lot
of
of the explanation for some of this behavior difference.
When you're living in a society, it's
yeah, biological essentialism is dumb. And just because that's the way that you interpret that doesn't mean that it's correct, nor does it mean that we ought to foist that upon anybody else. And so arguing against people on the trans issue, that they can't be whatever it is they say they are, and then making fun of them, making them feel bad about the choices they make, even though you said, oh, you're allowed to make those choices. But I'm gonna be a piece of shit to you, and I'm gonna make fun of you, and I'm gonna like ostracize you from society, and you're not gonna be allowed to have certain jobs, and I'm gonna call you a fucking pedophile, and I'm going to make sure that aspects of your culture and art can't be shared with anybody because I find it disgusting, and you're gonna have a moral panic about it, and you're gonna assist the people that do. Fuck off then. You feel me? So act in a way that is in accordance with the ethics that you agree. Well, no, we ought not do bad stuff to people. Well, then when people do bad stuff to people, well, I don't do that personally. Then you should be fighting against it because it runs counter to your ethics, does it not? Do you not believe we have an ethical compunction, an ethical obligation, rather, to partake in the at least social defense? At least we could say some words of defense towards people who are being victimized by large swaths of the community. I feel like we have an ethical obligation personally, but maybe I'm just a better man. I don't know.
kind of hard to make the distinction of like, what's the genesis of this behavior versus this behavior. Like, we know that male brains and female brains are different.
Right.
But when you actually get down into the nitty gritty of trying to figure out exactly how they're different, very hard. Like, we can see like they're shaped different, they respond to certain things differently, but like trying to figure out like what is the actual difference between these two things on like a very fundamental level, kind of difficult to fucking do.
Well, it depends what you're looking for. Like,
sure.
like
when you take like the social expectation kind of thing, it's like, let's look at how like women, like you use the gender pay gap as an example. Right. Like, yeah, a lot of it's behavioral. Sure.
Love that he just added the gender pay gap into his fucking spiel, by the way. I was going to mention that.
Sure. Could some of that be sexism? Maybe.
Was it the speed talking? I sped it up because they were talking too slow.
Could some of that be behavioral?
For my big brain.
Are those behaviors conditioned? Are those behaviors genetic? Are those behaviors a combination of the two things? Like, it's very hard because we don't really understand the human brain all that well, even to this day, to suss all of that out. Like, if you read neuroscience books, one of the things that the most prominent neuroscientists in the world will constantly convey to you is like, we still don't understand a lot of this shit. We know more about like the oceans and the stars than we do about our own brains to some extent.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand that. And if we lived in a society where people people acknowledge that, and there was kind of this open-ended question, as opposed to this kind of like strict political, this is because of, bigotry, then I guess I'd be more open to that, to just accepting that. But when we look at something, when we look at something like, a good example is, with programmers, there's this, attack that, the programming industry must be sexist because it's still mostly men. And I'm like, well, you look at, the fields of like being a doctor, being a lawyer, there's more women graduating from med school, there's more women graduating from law school than there are men. Once these fields, stopped being, openly bigoted, and yet there's still less women in the fields of programming. And then
once they stop being openly bigoted, so they stop being openly bigoted, and then immediately overnight the society shifts, and well, now they're just going to start going into those jobs. And there's no systemic ripple effect of decades and decades and decades of being the power structures being only these people. Like, how are guys like this so slow on systemic issues? Like, they think like 2-3 years tops. Once, like, civil rights, sure, I get it. A year later, 2 years later, but after that, who gives a fuck? They're free. They're free. They have rights. No more racism. We got Obama. Like, who does this appeal to? This isn't how people should think. This is such small-brained shit.
Say, well, that's interesting, and you combine that with all the toy studies that all overwhelmingly show that, men on average, even, male chimpanzees and male non-human primates, all on average are more interested in things instead of people, and women are more interested in people and social situations and things. To me, it's just very clearly like why these behavioral preferences are being made in certain fields, and we have to acknowledge that.
That shouldn't be ignored for sure. I mean, like, if we can look, if there is some sort of predilection that does kind of go down to that, because I'm not one of these blank slate people. I don't think human beings are just like a complete blank slate.
We have a brain, so that's why you don't believe that.
And it comes with a lot of like there's been a lot of fucking very intelligent people who have still believed in this blank slate hypothesis for some goddamn reason. I think maybe they want to for ideological reasons or something.
Exactly.
But we're not a blank slate. But we're also not all running on some fucking identical operating system. Like, there might not be as many women in programming, but there are women in programming.
Sure.
And there might not be as many men who are interested in social situations over like cool gizmos and gadgets, but there's plenty there are.
Sure.
So I mean, like, we have to recognize that. Yeah, sure, we can't ignore that these distinctions might exist, but we can't make the distinctions so monolithic and immutable that, like, no, you're deviating if you if you go outside of the parameters of this. Like, why?
Exactly. You can acknowledge statistical fucking like probabilities, I guess. Like, most men will like football. In America, most men will like football. That's right. Yes, they will. I don't even know if that's true. Most men will like football and lifting weights and pussies, and they'll like them when and they'll like having families and a dog and capitalism. When then some just don't. Some people just don't like any of that stuff, and that's okay too. And they can live however they like. And then he laughs and he says, of course. And yet he still continues with the rhetoric that reinforces the belief that people ought to live the way he does and that he approves of, and not the way that he wouldn't live ever. It's so strange. How do you maintain this cognitive dissonance? It's either dishonesty or stupidity. You cannot have both. You can't. It's dissonance, or it's fucking nefarious.
I don't think there's any reason to pigeonhole someone into some sort of like behavior just because there's a predilection among one of some ultimately at the end of the day superficial traits that they possess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree completely. That's why I would like for society to be structured along the ideas of equal opportunity, where we say, listen, we're not going to judge you based on your gender or your race or whatever. You can, if you want to be an effeminate male or a tomboy, woman or whatever, if you want to go into job markets that are, dominated by the other sex for whatever reason, no one's going to be bigoted or biased against you.
Well, the problem is that
whatsoever.
People tend
let me just finish. And so, so I'm in favor of structuring society that way. My problem, though, is it seems like now with the idea of equity, being forced on, like, there has to be equal demographic outcomes in every field, and that I think is kind of why I like to bring up the biology in these.
I don't think there has to be equal demographic outcomes in the field. What it is a liberal reaction to just systemic inequality, and it's not like the best thing ever, but it's better than the Republican or conservative opinion or your opinion, which is the same. That they ought not have any protections or anything helping them at all. You can't discount the generational damage done to these communities by the actions of white America, white capitalist America. You can get mad about it, I guess, but like we could just go down a list of the minority groups and you can see like explicit governmental and societal actions that held these people out of like what you would consider successful societal interactions, right? Because like by design, on purpose, not even like secondhand, the way that a lot of it works today. Because it was really bad for people before we were born. Like, it was really bad before you, like, and these people still exist. They experience it all. There's people alive today that weren't allowed to go to fucking white schools. Like, I don't know how they just skip off this shit. And they're like, well, I was born in 1984 and therefore everything's been good since. Because I had Will Smith on the TV when I was 7. And I remember Family Matters. There were, I skipped over Rodney King. Skip over the race riots. Don't worry at all about any of the stuff that happened after 9/11. None of the stuff. Ignore all of that. It was just fucking cool arcades and rad music and leg warmers. It's all good, man. We weren't racist when we were kids. I was smoking. I smoked doobs with a black friend when I was in high school. Back in my day, Will Smith was one of the good ones. Now he's on the TV slapping folk. He should not be slapping folk unless it's Chris Rock, in which case, I mean, it seems warranted.
Conversations to say, well, you're not going to get that perfect equity.
Yeah, but I don't really think there's any problem striving for it.
True.
Yeah, but
Striving for the
I don't think it should
impossible?
be strived for. I think we should be
Striving for the impossible? Wow, dream big, bro. Dream fucking big, dude. This is America. We don't strive for things that seem unattainable at the time. This is America, dude. Wow. What a fucking glorious future vision. What an ideology.
for removing the bigotry so people can make their own choices.
How do you remove the bigotry, though?
You just say let people behave how they want to behave. You promote an idea of tolerance and individualism.
What if some of those individuals want to behave in a bigoted fashion? What if they band together and form the bigot club and prevent other people from? I mean, this is not a hypothetical. This is what actually happens.
Sure, but I think that's why. I mean, society. Adam said this earlier. I think society. That's why it's done a good job. Society has done a good job.
You gotta say it very jokery and
that's true.
Society
has done a good job really cracking down on making overt racism not acceptable.
Well, and to bring it back to the dogma thing.
I feel like that's been pushed back against a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not going to disagree with
Look, this is a byproduct of a dogma, though. The dogma is that if there is any sort of racial disparity in any job, racial or gender disparity, then
any racial or gender disparity, this is a straw man.
That's evidence of sexism or racism.
That is not what it says. No, it's like man, there's a big difference between like, oh, this is like, it's not perfect, but it's sort of representative of the community, and just like, wow, there's a whole swath of people that just don't interact with this. We should find out why. Oh, it's because racism, it's because hiring practices, it's because of nothing in particular. It's because of education differences. Like, man, hold on. One of the other genders has walked into the room. I must treat her differently than everybody else in the room. Hello, sugar tits. How's your womb?
Where is the muffin pan?
The muffin pan.
Yes.
Is in the right side sink, I think. Or it's... You had dripped some like cornmeal on it and let it get hard in the oven. And so I was going to put it away and then realized the scar laying upon it from the event. And I either set it in the fucking sink to soak, or I said fuck it and put it somewhere else.
Where did you put it?
It would only be in a 6-foot circle. So you just stand where...
all over and I'm fucking... I'm,
Can you give it another look?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, can you give it another one? Because that's where the area it's gonna be. He just came in and I touched his butt and he made me click. He sent an electric jolt through the headset.
Oh, I see it.
She found it.
It's underneath all the shit in the sink. That's why.
Yeah, it's in the sink.
So now I gotta move everything.
Yeah, because I did dishes and there was stuff in the dishwasher, and then we cooked while the dishwasher was moving. Anyway. Darwin the lightning dog, he is a lightning elemental, true.
That's the dogma. But I don't think that dogma is true. I think that dogma is incorrect.
I don't think that dogma is the dogma. I also think it's a liberal response, so it's not the leftist response. The leftist response would be to address the problem, not try to band-aid it. So the problem in these situations is that systemic abuses, both through capitalism and through just like the fucking racism of society and the government over the years, has obviously held down certain minority groups to different degrees, and for different amounts of time throughout this country. And it's not like not noticeable or deniable. And I think, if you're honest, you agree that would have a long-reaching impact. I hope we don't have to argue about that. I'm sure there would be some pushback on systemic racism or something, but I mean, just from a pure numbers perspective, generational wealth was certainly affected by stuff like the black kids can't go to school. You know what I mean? Like, fucking dumb. The leftist response to this isn't just to let capitalism run its course and hope the free market like satisfies the income inequality. The leftist response to this would be to ensure everyone housing and education and food. Like the ability and healthcare, the ability to have good lives independent of the markets, and then join the markets if they want to get extra stuff in life. But
scientifically inaccurate.
Like, here's the thing. Here's where
that's the short-term leftist response.
Kind of like
that's not the long-term.
Push back a little bit against that. So let's say you see there's massive racial or gender bias in a particular industry, or not even necessarily bias, but you just see there's a discrepancy.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather we attribute too much of that to like, hey, is there something going on that's unfair here? Rather than just be like, well, it's probably just part of nature. Because I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, isn't it, aren't you better off assuming like, hey, we should look into this and see if like there is some sort of discrimination going on here?
True.
To make sure that's not the explanation for this.
I feel like this is Pascal's wager just about gender and ideology.
That's not Pascal's wager. What? You can check it out. It's harmless. Why are you so afraid of someone checking to see if an injustice is done to somebody? Wouldn't you want to live in a situation where people are, people check on that kind of thing? That's not even close to Pascal's wager.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you feel that.
It is. How's it any different?
Because if you were a black person that was applying for a job and a white person got that job over you because their name is Michael and yours is Tyrone, then I think you feel differently about that.
Well, hold on a
someone's like, well, it's probably just your genetic proclivity for inferiority or whatever.
Look, I don't think you understand the critique that I'm making. Like Pascal's wager famously says, since you don't really have enough evidence, you should just side on believing in God just to be safe, right? And you're basically saying, well, since we don't have enough evidence that the thing I want to exists, let's just side on the idea that it does, and just assume that this sexism, racism exists.
Didn't say assume that it exists. Just said if we see something that we look at the data and we go, there is a 70-30 split on the sexes here. What is that about? And we look into it. Like, what is it about? I would like to know as a person just running a business for multiple reasons. Right? Like I could think of like okay, hiring practices. I'm a little sus about it. What kind of work are we doing? What's the pay like? Are we providing support for I guess in this case women to be taken care of at this place? Like what's going on with that? And then if it is just a societal thing, like I don't know, we this is a fucking, what's the opposite of a gentleman's club? It's a Chippendales. Well, yeah. I don't know. Home Depot probably doesn't have quite as many ladies applying, but I mean, I see lots. I don't know, man. It probably doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just, we could just check. There's no fucking problem with it. They're so precious about it.
Remember though,
can't we figure out scientifically? Can't we look and see if it actually exists?
Let's talk about Pascal's wager for a second.
Okay.
Because one of the problems with like Pascal's wager might actually be a little bit more persuasive if it was like, here's the one path that we claim gets you to heaven, and here is your non-belief that's going to send you directly to hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're wrong, blah, 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 the whole Pascal's wager thing. But the problem with Pascal's wager is there's fucking practically infinite faiths.
Right.
So, like, even if you do, like, you're still more likely, if there is a hell, to go to hell when you pick any random religion out there.
Sure.
So there's tons of different fucking options out there. But also, like, the result of me being wrong about, hey, there's a sex, like let's say there's 90% males in this industry.
Yeah.
Why is there only 10% women in this industry? Could that be because of sexism?
Well,
Let's look into that.
My bringing up,
Because
my
the-
comparing it
because
to
the-
Pascal's wager, though, is that
But
we
the
can
end
look
result
at,
is
why
not-
can't we look at science?
We can, but the end result is not hell. We're not going to burn in hell if we get this one fucking wrong. The end result is either like, hey, we put too much emphasis on stopping sexism in this industry when actually there was another explanation. Oops,
Well,
oh well.
well,
Like,
first
Well,
of all,
that's
no
not
harm,
served
no
to me,
foul.
TJ.
Well,
I'm gonna pull a Jordan Peterson.
First of all, when you do get it wrong, you do
Up yours, woke moralists.
when you do get it wrong, you do commit a sexism. You just commit a sexism against the men that you discriminate against in hiring.
And hiring, wait, looking into it is not looking into, okay, say it was flipped. Say it was 90% women and 10% men, and we're wondering why aren't men coming to the job here? What are we doing? And we look into it and we find out two of the hiring managers are in cahoots, and they're like, we're not hiring any men. None of them. I don't care what they look like. And then some of them get through because the third one. I think it would be worth looking into. I don't think it would be actually sexism against men if you hired women, though.
So that you can get the gender balance that you're seeking in employment.
Well,
in
I'm
hiring.
not necessarily saying like just force the balance to happen, whether it's going to naturally happen or not.
Right.
Like,
Well,
definitely make
what
sure,
are
like,
you saying then? That's exactly
what I'm saying is stringently take the idea that maybe the discrepancy has its basis in sexism seriously, and do everything you can to remove any fucking barrier possible. And then if the discrepancy remains, it's like, okay, well, we did our best. It seems like like we've removed all the barriers. The discrepancy still exists. Obviously, it exists for some other reason.
Yeah. That's reasonable. That's what everybody in the left really thinks. This is it all the time.
right.
Well,
Well,
I
I feel like we're at
That
that
seems like a rational thing to do.
Yeah, no, well, two things. If we live in a society that was that mature,
God,
then
he's-
I would agree with you completely.
What? What do you mean if it was that mature? It can be. It is. That's all anyone's asking for.
Unfortunately, we don't live in that world. Okay,
No.
People are they're going to push for, especially because you have a lot of activist groups who they make money by pushing for activism, so they're never going to admit, well, I guess we were wrong.
It's not the activism groups that are harming hiring practices in these places. What? Activist groups are there because there are workers that need rights. There are activist groups out here making bank on just hiring women at Starbucks or something. You know what I mean? Like, you're making up a guy. These aren't things.
No, I guess we've reached peak equality in this field. So that's the first issue. The second issue is if we still lived in a world where, or at least in a country, where the liberal framework of ideas was all that was being talked about, I would be far more open to what you're suggesting. I guess I'm a little hesitant because since I'm looking at the left as basically being subverted by, literal Marxism and Marxist ideas, that I think when they promote this idea of like, oh, everything is sexist, everything is racist.
Marxism is the left. I mean, let's be real. Like, liberalism is not leftism. It's not. I mean,
According to who?
According to me.
According to everybody. What the fuck?
Why?
I mean, because that's not like traditionally what the left has been.
What do you mean? Wait. That was literally the tradition.
No.
The tradition of left.
Maybe
the origin of left was liberalism versus monarchy. What do you mean?
Maybe in this country.
No. When the left-right divide started in France,
I'm
it was
so glad he's picking this fight.
liberalism versus the liberal democracy versus monarchy.
I mean, I guess if you want to qualify that as being leftism, but to me, it kind of started when Karl Marx put pen to paper. Like that's when
Well, I
leftism was
think
born.
that's a little bit of revisionist history, but
The political philosophy. I mean, it's really just about semantics at that point. It's just like what are you going to call left? I don't particularly think liberalism is leftist. I think it's like, I don't know, moderate right.
Yeah.
okay. Well, okay. But let me add. So we're gonna have another question. How
Liberals.
do you define left and right? Okay, but before we get into that, there was one other trans question I want to ask.
Sure.
So from what you were saying with the trans stuff, like my view of
The
of
trans stuff. Let's go.
the trans question is that there's this thing called gender dysphoria. We don't know exactly what causes it, but it is real. It does exist. I do believe it's something that's primarily biological, or people are predisposed to it, and maybe it can be activated by some sort of environmental conditioning.
Sure.
And that I think only people that have gender dysphoria should transition, or should be allowed to transition. That it's a medical procedure.
Allowed. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is what I think about. Okay, I'm gonna use an extreme example. I've used this example a couple times. This guy exists. Okay? Can this guy look like a lizard? I don't think anyone has a moral issue with this guy wanting to be a lizard. He shaved his teeth. He's got little eyebrow ridges. You might find it distasteful. Tattoos his whole body. split his tongue. Who gives a fuck? Shouldn't be allowed? Fuck that, dude. Everybody can live however the fuck they want. Allowed to transition. Fucking fascist shit.
Procedure. It's not so much people like finding their identity.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. It seemed like you were, from what you were saying, it seemed like you were sort of insinuating that anyone for any reason should be able to transition.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So I vehemently disagree with.
Why?
Because if
Perfect. I love you. I want to talk to TJ. I want to talk to people. I know I've been talking about this for a while. It's hard to figure out where to get started and who to get started with. I feel like I really want to talk to TJ though. Maybe that's just where I should start. The first one, I guess he was our first. He was the first big like guy that we got a shout out from. I don't know, man. I mean, TJ would come on in a second. We've talked before. I just think it would be fun.
if we
I know all these people.
lived in a world where like you could walk into your character customization video game booth and you could just change your appearance and there was no downside, I would agree with you, but we don't. So transitioning is very expensive. It's very painful. It's a
It's expensive and painful, so you can't do it, chat. I'm not going to let you.
medical procedure that often doesn't
Well, that's
always
why
have the best outcome.
I don't think people should necessarily take it lightly. But I mean, I think if you look into that and you decide like this is what I want, I don't really think the reason why should matter all that much. It doesn't. We don't ask that for any other cosmetic surgery.
Fucking
It's like,
true.
I want a big butt. All right, well, here's the risks. You still want to do it? Yep. Boom. Here's your big ass. Like, there's so many things a person can do, from injecting collagen, fucking phalloplasty, rhinoplasty, fucking butt surgery. There's a million and one like augmentation. I mean, I got LASIK eye surgery. A dude fucking shot a laser into my eye. There's tons of fucking studies out there that say that might not be great, but I did it because I decided that's what I wanted to do.
Well,
so I mean, like, there's a lot of fucking surgeries that are not necessarily necessary, that are
Based.
completely elective, that are maybe superficial on some level, but someone psychologically desires them for whatever reason, and we don't put up barriers that stop people from doing that.
Fucking
I don't
true.
think They should be treated any differently.
I mean, we
So-
just
Boom. Yes.
put up some barriers, obviously. Like,
No.
you walked in and
Sure,
said, I
there
want to
should
get
be-
an arm amputated. The doctor's going to say, I'm not going to do that. So
I mean, you could probably find somebody.
Yeah, but it's certainly
You can get your arm amputated.
not acceptable in the widespread community of doctors, right?
Hey, there's always there's doctors, and then there's doctors. Right?
well, but obviously
that
the things that
proves the
you're
point.
the things that you're talking about, though.
I mean, I don't think there's too many people that are trying to get an arm amputated, but if someone did want that, who fucking cares? No fucking
yeah,
arm off
they'd
my
have a
body.
buddy. They'd have a buddy do it for them.
I mean, just cut them off. Cut it off. I don't care. I would ask you if you meant it, and I would, like, if I knew you and you're like, man, I just really want to cut my fucking arm off so bad, I'd be like, are you sure? Why? I'd be genuinely curious, and so would most people, right? I love having an arm. I don't want not that. Why do you want that? It makes sense that people would ask. But once that person goes, it just makes me fucking uncomfortable. I just can't stand living with this arm on. And if I cut this arm off, it's going to make me happy. Well, I mean, fuck, I guess cut it off. That's compelling to me. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then you have to live with that. And then they're happy. And it was right. That's what a bunch of people are telling you. And it's not even as bad as cutting an arm off. It's bad. It's debilitating. At least from my perspective. I don't think from any of their perspectives either. They're keeping all their parts and pieces. Sometimes they get new ones added on. It's awesome. It's dope.
Let's
Get the fucking bands on.
Well, no, see,
but
so-
what we're talking about here, obviously, you're talking about for consenting adults, right? The
Sure, yeah.
problem that is often brought into the trans situation is a lot of the justifications that we give for adults, they tend to stretch to adolescents who don't necessarily have the best decision-making faculties.
Sure. And I mean, I don't think they should be getting like advanced surgeries and shit at a fucking super young age. But
Right.
like, if there's, I mean, I think that the system that exists now, by and large, I mean, I know there's a few people here and there that slip through the cracks that, are, oh, it turns out I don't want to transition. Oh shit, we made a mistake. But like the vast majority seem okay with it in the long run. And no one's being like, there's no fucking gender reassignment surgeries being done on fucking like 3-year-olds or something. So
Yep.
I don't really see the issue. Like you have to go, like every step of this is like overseen by mental health professionals and shit,
Yep.
right? So
Are you against puberty blockers for
Oh my God.
children underage?
no.
Okay.
Okay, well, wait, there's two things. The first, I want to go circle back for a second before we talk about puberty blockers, which was I mean, I think you can bring up cosmetic surgery as a counterbalance. I wouldn't consider LASIK, obviously, because it has a strict medical.
It has a function,
reason
but
of
I mean,
function.
it has a function, but my glasses serve the same function with inherently less health risks attached to them. So
Sure, but there's a difference between saying like, oh, you can do this thing that will improve your health outcomes.
Not really.
It has a risk versus like, oh, this is a purely cosmetic procedure. Those are two different things.
no.
Those conceptualized very differently by the medical community
No.
and by society
mean,
as a whole.
maybe by society as a whole, not really by the medical community, because
Sure
once
it
again,
What do you mean?
gender transition is seen as the medical solution to gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Well, wait, first of all, we
So there is
were
a
just
problem.
talking about the difference
There's a
between
problem.
cosmetic and medical procedure. I wasn't
Right, but-
talking about
Well,
transition.
no, but when we were talking about cosmetic, you were talking about me saying that even people who don't have gender dysphoria should be able to transition. So that was a different subject. Now we're talking about people who have gender dysphoria.
Right, but
So
see, but that's
that's different.
right, but that's my point. Is that like if you have gender dysphoria and you transition, it's a medical procedure. It's not a cosmetic
Sure,
procedure.
exactly. But
Right.
if you just decide you'd rather present that way, then I mean, I still think you should be able to do it. I don't fucking see why not.
Well, this goes back to the
Yeah, I agree. There's no argument against it.
Isn't that just like an individual liberty kind of thing?
this goes back to the children thing, which we don't generally conceptualize children as having individual liberty.
Why are we talking about children? Always comes back to children. It's the only thing that you can morally panic about is that you can conceive of a child being forced to transition against their will. That you can conceive of it is some kind of like fucking mental block you have against people living their lives. I can also conceive of it. We can conceive of it together. We should stop it if it happens. We should not let people change their children against the child's will. That's true. Wow, very easy. I've always had that take. Including fucking circumcision. Aren't you Jewish, PSA Sitch? Uh-oh. We seem to be running into a fucking problem here, don't we? Do you have your dick skin still? Was it taken with your consent?
Well,
like a
we're not
child
about children. We're talking
Well,
about adults.
I don't think kids should be able to just like volunteer. I just feel trans. If they're not diagnosed with gender dysphoria, then no, they gotta wait till they're fucking older.
So that's
But-
why Sitch is making the separation. He's making the separation between people who
Right.
just want to transition and are adults, and people
Okay,
who
so
have gender dysphoria and are
people
doing it
who-
for a medical reason.
Sure, and then I'll accept that distinction. Like, yeah, for the fucking latter class of people who are just wanting to do it for some other reason, yeah, they should be adults. But for kids who have gender dysphoria that are being seen by mental health care professionals that are going through the like recommended things of their
This is how it always happens, right? So this is a fine thing for TJ to say. The only reason that there's an anarchist position about self-medicating and stuff. This is a solution. This is a solution that comes up in a commodified healthcare system that actively fights against you, right? Not like an ideological position. I agree with TJ if there was healthcare. I love that TJ is just latching on to all the right things in this conversation. He's catching these motherfuckers off guard. I mean, yeah, it's really easy. These guys are not very bright. I mean, I think every person should be able to get the care they need because we're not all medical professionals. But I understand the desire for some people to say self-administer their hormones. Without a prescription because of the system they live under and how fucking oppressive it is. Yeah. So, and before the 90s it was hard to get. Yeah, exactly. But under a system that TJ and I would appreciate, there would be no need for that, right? You'd just be able to go get that process taken care of in a responsible and medically sound way, right? Because that's all we want, is everybody to be healthy. Like sometimes you just can't take the certain stuff, Depends on what the medication is. I'm not going to get too in the weeds about, certain puberty blockers or anything, but, they're overall healthy things that cis people take all the time.
doctors. That's fine. I don't see a problem with that.
Right. Well, maybe we just have a very different idea on. I mean, I'm generally pretty pro liberty, but I'm not like an extremist on this. I don't think people should be able to do whatever drugs they want.
I do.
People should.
Yeah.
Well, so maybe
I
we
do.
have
It's kind of a stick in the
a
mud.
principled disagreement on that level. I do think society does
do.
have society
Society.
has some level of protection that should be given to its citizens in terms of
I don't think I
procedures and chemicals and
don't
things
want
like that.
society protecting me from myself. Fuck
Okay.
that. I'd rather make mistakes if I'm gonna make them and like live with those
the
rather
whole-
than have big daddy government come and tell me what's what.
Okay.
Fucking true. Based. Absolutely true. Big Daddy government doesn't get to tell you how to live your life. They only get to tell you how to treat other people. Okay? You can't inflict other things on other people, but you can do whatever you want to your damn self.
Fuck that.
Well, you understand, though, in the context of children, it's difficult because the whole
We're not
purpose of
talking about
parenting is
kids. We're not talking
protecting.
about kids.
Okay.
We're only
It's,
talking
He
it's,
is.
it's still
I know.
important, yeah.
Get together on this. Figure out where
Right.
you want to be.
Well,
I appreciate you, TJ.
So I guess the other thing we were talking about was you brought up puberty blockers was I mean my concern with puberty blockers is that pre-puberty blockers, pre-affirmative care model, desistance rates were basically measured, which is someone says they're trans and then isn't. The rates of that before puberty blockers were introduced in like the early 2000s and the 90s and the 80s, it was something like in the realms of 60 to 90% of kids would desist once they go through puberty, and then once you start putting kids on puberty blockers, it drops to like 20 to 30%.
That's true, and there's a giant fucking issue with this, and it's kind of a catch-22 if you're a medical professional in this situation, because you're faced with a situation where it's going to be much easier if this person does need to transition. Then it's going to be much easier if they transition before going through puberty. It's going to be much easier if they don't go. If it's much easier to transition to female if you don't go through male puberty. It's much easier to transition to vice versa.
Right.
But it's also true, like you said, that you're in a situation where a lot of times if someone's having gender dysphoria and then they go through the male puberty or the female puberty, that fucking knocks it out. Yeah. So a lot of times when puberty blockers are used, this is my understanding, it's to try to like psychologically assess like which of the two categories that person's actually in. So it's like it's a way to try to buy more time to figure out what's going on.
If that's the way it works, that would be good. Unfortunately,
that is the way it works. Wait. Puberty blockers are used to delay the onset of puberty or to reduce the impact of puberty on an individual. And this is used as, like, they're still evaluating the process, and then the person goes through the process of evaluation through themselves, with their family, with their friends, with their mental health professionals. Like, it's like, yeah. Foxy Bites, thanks for following. Like, that's the use of puberty blockers. It's the point of them. I don't think. What do they think puberty blockers do?
Fortunately, at least in America, under the affirmative model, which is basically to not question someone's trans identity, that's not really. It's really like this. Just puberty blockers are there to block until they're old enough to essentially.
The affirmative model is not to not question someone's identity. It's to talk about that person's experience of gender, not necessarily to confirm or deny it, just to have them suss it out. You know what I mean? Like, affirmation does not mean reinforcement, and their brains can't fucking, like, if you talk to a mental health professional and you say, look, I think my gender identity is this, they're going to say, okay. They're not going to say, okay, and that's great, and you should do this, and oh, you should be a pretty girl in a pretty dress, and this is how you should live. And they're gonna be like, okay, that's valid, and why do you believe that? Why do you feel that way? Like let's talk about it, because that is an interesting conversation. Absolutely, it's important to understand why we feel certain ways about ourselves, how we come to be, and make more fully realized opinions of our own situation, man.
Transition with hormones or surgery.
I don't know that that's necessarily how it's approached. But I've never been through this personally firsthand. You'd have to talk to a trans person about that and kind of like gauge their experiences, because I can only go off of like the understanding I have from talking to people.
Well, if it was that way, I assume would that change your mind?
I would say that it would change my mind slightly in that, I think they should be used a little bit differently. Because, if you are at a point where, you assess like, hey, it seems to me like going through male puberty has a pretty fucking strong chance of erasing this person's gender dysphoria, then I don't necessarily see a problem in allowing that to happen. But the thing that sucks is if you're wrong, then that person's going to be in a worse situation. So it's like, I get the dilemma. I really do.
Yeah, no, I get it too. I get it.
And that's why before anyone has ever given any child puberty blockers, everyone has gone through the process of evaluation. Like, that's why the system exists the way it does. And that's why mental health professionals and medical professionals have come to consensus on the treatment path for people with this particular situation. Sometimes it ends in medical transition, or I guess ends up in. It doesn't really end there, but like sometimes it leads to that. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it has no puberty blockers at all. Sometimes it does. Like, and we're only talking about binary trans people here. We're not even talking about trans people that don't even like seek this kind of thing out, or only want to seek aspects of certain parts of gender. Like, some people want a mastectomy but still want their they don't want their breasts, but they do want their reproductive organs, or they don't want their reproductive organs, but they do want their breasts. You know what I mean? Like, I can you can conceive of a lot of ways that this would go about, and some people don't want any transition whatsoever insofar as like anything but like social stuff. Sometimes they don't want any social changes and only would like usually it comes with social changes, I suppose, but name wouldn't change. wouldn't even pick up different affectations. Maybe we just get like, oh, I dress a different way, or maybe my name changes, or you know what I'm saying? Like, there's small things that people do. Like, it never manifests the same for any two people. And to start to describe every trans person as, it's always like, it's a secret man that wants to chop his dick off, and it's like, this is just not the description. Like, ask a trans person their experience, and this is not what is described to me. What is described to me is someone who feels uncomfortable in the way that other people treat them and wishes that their life was a little bit different. I think that most people can agree with, like, the notion, or at least I empathize with the notion, that they have an imperfection that they dislike about themselves or their personality or their physicality or their life, and that they would change if they could. And these people just have a more personal and more, it's just a more affecting version of this. I think there's a little bit of a, like, the reason that there's a social, we'll call it a social boom in this, is because so many people have been suppressing this for so long, and now people are finding out, oh shit, gender isn't really a thing. I don't really have to, like, adhere. There's lots of people who are, like, otherwise masculine and just choose they them pronouns, or otherwise feminine and just choose they them because they feel like, man, I just would really like to decouple myself from the expectations of that, and it makes me more happy and shit. And they otherwise change, like, kind of nothing. The name stays the same, like, and I don't know. I have no idea where someone could have an objection to anyone's fucking identity, except a small-minded boy.
That's why it annoys me, because I feel like the trans community should really be pushing for funding for research to determine brain scans, biological tests.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, to be fair, it's kind of hard to be focusing on that level of nuance when it seems like there's a lot of, like, existential threat level things being said about you, you know, politically. It kind of, that kind of pushes people towards extremist positions.
True.
There's, like, people talking about eradication on, like, the national stage.
Sure.
Yeah.
I assume you're referring to the Michael Knowles clip, which maybe we'll talk about. But I agree and kind of disagree, because I think if I think if the rhetoric from the trans community, or the trans activists, I should say, more, because most trans people just want transition and move on with their lives. But from the trans activist side of things, if the rhetoric was, you know, we acknowledge that there are, you know, people that think they're trans but aren't, and we basically want to develop medical tests to just, you know, figure that out, I think that a lot of the anti-trans side would lose a lot of its steam.
We want to means test everyone's fucking gender and put them through scientist prodding to make sure that they're telling the truth about who they are. I'm good. We don't have to other a bunch of people like that. That sounds like bureaucracy bullshit. I don't want the government involved in that. Did you not just hear what TJ said 1 second ago? I don't want anyone fucking involved in your decision to personally identify. It's only when it comes to the medical aspect of this do you need to even consult professionals, right? So if it affects your mental health, which most of the negative mental health effects of being trans come not really from the body thing, because imagine if no social pressure, you're trans, right? You can ask any trans person. Any trans person will ask you, what do you value more? Your ability to medically transition, or if 100% of people just fucking accepted you as you were? Most people will say the social aspect of this is the most important. So imagine a scenario where the social aspect was just taken care of. You could foresee medical not being that big of a deal. People would be like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So, like, it's just about that. That's what it's about. We don't need someone to be fucking means tested. We don't need to be poked and prodded to make sure you're fucking, you know, asexual and non-binary. Who gives a fuck? I believe you. I don't know why you would lie to me about that. Would seem weird to do. Okay, that's what you are. And if that changes, then let me know. I don't give a fuck. I really couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, I've known a lot of people who are trans, who are, I guess, activists, because they're advocates, who I don't think would particularly object to what you just said. So I don't know.
Sure. That's just not what the focus is at all.
I mean, I feel like that's because everything kind of becomes these.
I object.
Look, I mean, if we want to talk about the bigger picture a little bit here, like, there's like a distinctive class of people that use social issues like this to divide the populace, you know, so that they can keep lining their pockets. So, I mean, this is like, this is just a rerun of gay shit in the 90s for me. Like 90s and early 2000s, the gays were all of the things that trans people now are. Yep. You saw the same, like, fucking nuclear level rhetoric going on about the gays. Sure. And then it was like, when that was no longer, it doesn't seem like they're being too divided by that one anymore. Move on to the next thing.
Yep. Yep, you're the current piece of meat that they're going to gnaw on for their political sustenance for as long as possible, and they'll move on to something else's bones. They're on scraps right now. They got nothing. They were trying to attack the asexuals recently and got no traction on that.
Understand the intuitions that those politicians are catering to, though, that there are a lot of parents that are worried that their children are going to be misdiagnosed with gender dysphoria and embark on a path that's going to
Do
destroy
you
their
understand that
entire.
there's a lot of parents that are just worried that their child is going to be brainwashed into being gay?
Well, I mean, you would be.
You know, it's like, come on, no bullshit, fuck that. I don't fucking I have
Well,
no
this
sympathy
is-
for that horse shit.
So
yeah,
look,
I don't
this
have
is
any
why
sympathy for it either. Good.
I want to talk about this
That's
because
horseshit.
like, there's an ideology being taught in schools that I'm not certain is scientifically accurate.
You
But
know, I was-
if
when I was
there
a-
was when there was the ideology being taught in
Sure.
schools called intelligent design, you were against that. You were completely against that because you thought it's not right for people to come in and make their ideology, dress it up as if it's somehow scientific, and spoon feed it to school children. You were against
Sure.
it then. But
I
now,
still am.
the same thing seems to be happening
Nope.
with this gender
This is not the
ideology
same thing.
stuff. They're
Does
dressing
it?
it up in a scientific
Nope.
I don't think so.
bow and ribbon and
No.
spoon feeding it to children, and you're like all for it. You're
No.
totally gun-ho in favor.
I
of it.
don't, because I don't know, that's just like a ludicrous comparison to me. Like, how demonstrate to me that there is a level of like pseudoscience fallaciousness going on in medical transitioning versus creationism. Because
Well,
like,
Go ahead, do it.
People say this all the time. They're
So-
like they say trans people exist as if that's proof of anything. Christians exist. Does that prove that Christ died for our sins?
Christians existing is proof of Christians existing the same way trans people existing is proof of trans people existing. If trans people believed in Baphomet, if every trans person believed in Baphomet, it would not be proof of Baphomet's existence, however. How does this guy think he's smart? Like, he didn't say the same thing.
Does it
No,
prove that God
but wait,
exists? But Christians do
wait,
exist.
saying-
Christians
saying that
Christians have an
Christians-
ideology that they
saying
look
that
at.
Christians exist, though, that does demonstrate the existence of Christians. Saying
Eh,
Boom! Thank you, TJ.
And saying
exist
trans
demonstrates the existence of trans people.
No,
I don't
it
know.
demonstrates the existence of trans ideology. That's what it demonstrates. Just
Well,
like
saying Christianity exists demonstrates the existence of Christian ideology.
it does. Yes, no,
So,
exactly.
whatever.
That's the same thing. But
Yeah, no, it's not. Christian ideology does exist. What?
one ideology you
but, like,
accept.
Yeah, I mean, so wait.
One
Wait,
ideology
so the
you
similar-
accept as
the similar-
truth.
So the similarity is there's ideologies involved.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, well, there's always everything I believe is part of an ideology. So
Yes,
who
but
fucking gives a
look,
shit?
as
Yeah, this is reductive to the point of uselessness. It's an ideology, and therefore, okay, aren't you using an ideology to describe these things?
as you know, a scientific person, as a materialist, I like to focus on
So
ideologies
cringe.
that fit the
Okay.
actual real world. that's one of the reasons why I
So-
think we have disagreement.
So in the real world, there are trans people who really exist, and they explain their experiences, and they corroborate with one another. Everyone's experience seems to be essentially about self-identity and what makes them most comfortable about themselves. And we have medical consensus on this. We have mental health professional consensus on this. We have societal consensus on this, essentially. And then there's a small contingent of people who are just like, I don't know, I don't buy it because you don't experience it yourself. And it seems small-minded to me. It seems unintelligent. It seems uncurious. And worst of all, it's just whack. It's just lame. It's just cringe.
this is because
you
I
said
don't.
you said gender dysphoria exists, right?
Well, I think yes, gender dysphoria. Something called gender dysphoria exists. I don't
Okay,
necessarily
so
know
where
the
does-
details of it. Like
Okay.
I'm not.
I don't know the details on it. So your ignorance of the subject is what we're appealing to now? Your ignorance of gender dysphoria is now the bullet in the box of ammo you got left?
willing to let
Okay.
children just randomly transition after.
No one's saying that children are randomly transitioning. That's not what's happening. You are making up a guy.
One.
No one's randomly transitioning. There's a long drawn out process. I know trans people. I've not yet met one trans person who was like, hey, I went to a psychiatrist. They were like, you're trans.
So what-
Turn up
so
Tuesday for
hold on.
to meet Dr. fucking Penis Chopper MD. Like,
Tell
what?
me.
Like, this
Look,
is
tell
fiction,
me.
sir. This is a
This is
fantasy.
Hold on,
Fiction.
TJ.
No, you're just wrong.
You've heard
I love you. I think we're going to bring TJ on soon.
many of the Christians explain to you
I'll DM
their
you soon.
transformation story, right? They tell you things like, "Oh, I feel God is real. Like God has spoken to me. God has acted in my life in certain ways that make me, undeniably believe that God exists and He's there for me." You've heard that again and again and again, and you've scoffed at it every single time.
Sure.
What do we look at that's something objective when somebody says, "I am, a woman trapped in a man's body," or "I'm a man trapped in a woman's body"? They say, "I feel this." Deep down in my soul, I understand this. My gender assigned at birth was incorrect.
I don't respect gender as a construct one needs to adhere to. Therefore, anyone who self-identifies as whatever they want to can act in that way.
Do you believe in ADHD?
Right.
Do you believe in bipolar disorder?
Right.
Well,
Do you
those
believe
those
because you can't see any of
those
those things.
look,
All right. Do you believe in fucking like depression? Do you believe in BPD? Like,
but
You can't see inside the human brain and know
Yes,
what's
you
going on
can
in
too.
your
You can
human
measure.
brain.
Look, you can measure those things. There are different tests that you can measure anxiety. You can measure
Sure, and
blood pressure. You can
look
measure
at-
skin
and you can look at the
changes.
brains. You can look at the brains of trans women and trans men and see that they are different. So
Can
you can
you?
look at that too. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you can't. Some.
yes, you can.
There's some. There hasn't. There needs to be a lot more research on that. But
I mean,
what I wanted
last
to do, 'cause-
I checked, there's differences in brain chemistry and fucking brain formation. So
right. But there's been some. Well, there's differences in brain. The way the brain is.
Wow, just fucking just scrambling for any sort of bullshit you can grab onto. There's actually like some that say that the opposite of that though.
In straight and gay people, and so there's
Sure.
a question of how the overlap would be if someone's trans.
well, yeah, but
and
I
then,
mean, like
things
once
of that
again,
nature.
when dealing with the brain, you're dealing with uncharted territory.
I
If you want to talk about
understand.
you're dealing with the final frontier here. Like if you read a neuroscience book from the foremost neuroscience experts, every single one of them will convey to you just how much we do not fucking know. We don't even understand
There
the
are
process.
sex differences though that are way more measurable than the brain.
Well,
Retinal
yeah,
thickness
but
of
no one's-
males is
no one's-
significantly larger
no
than
one's-
retinal thickness of females.
no one-
Retinal thickness? Does retinal thickness have anything to do with your societal day-to-day experience? Have you ever gone to work and you've been like, "Hey man, how's your retinal thickness today?" I don't know, you're looking a little fucking womanly to me. Look like you got a little thin retina there, you little baby.
no one's
measure
denying,
other
no
things.
one's denying physiological differences between the sexes. So
Well, I think what Adam was referring to when he talked about the gender ideology being taught in school is that when you look at the gender unicorn and some of the classes that I've seen where they talk
the
about
gender
transition-
unicorn.
Yeah,
What
the
is
gender
that?
unicorn.
I don't know what the gender unicorn is.
It was
sorry.
like this chart that made the rounds.
I always go around and make sure to demand everyone's retinal thickness. I
you know,
gotta make
because it was
sure.
being pushed in a
That's
bunch of
right.
schools.
Okay.
But anyway, that whenever I see curriculum and teachers talking about sort of the
Ooh boy, retinal looking thick today. Thank you. Hey Chad, if you have a nice thick retina, can you please subscribe immediately? I would love any opportunity to interrupt this. And end up in Hotel Hell Land. I'm just saying. It'll happen. That's what it takes.
gender quote unquote ideology in schools, they're not coming from the same place that you are. They're
Terrible
basically saying that
man.
that people are blank slates. There are no gendered behavioral differences, and that's kind of my contention that the way this is being taught in schools.
I mean, I don't know. You have to show me a particular
Start
curriculum or teacher or whatever,
Mhm.
and I could maybe criticize them. But I don't know. I feel like there's so much ideology at this point that's been thrown into the mix, and so much tribalism, so much trying
On
to
both sides, though, right?
prove or disprove this shit. I mean, yeah, I mean that's like the nature of tribalism is that both sides, or usually it's more than two sides these days, but the nature of tribalism is that each tribe is going to, form a circle and point their spears outwards, right? So like, yeah. So I don't really know. I don't really trust necessarily like this source of information or that source of information. For me, most of what I know about trans people comes from talking to trans people.
Whoa, would you believe it?
Most of what I know about transitioning comes from them telling me about transition.
This is what
Me too.
this is why I wanted to talk to you, TJ, because what you're saying, that's to me the same as somebody saying most of what I know about Christians is from talking to Christians.
Sure,
Like you
I
would
would
you
agree
would
with
not
that.
accept the lived experience of Christians to prove anything about the
I never-
natural world.
But trans people don't make prescriptions on the natural world. Like what? People have the right to self-identify and to express themselves however they wish. It's not the same. They can be Christian. Like I thought you weren't an anti-theist. So you're making an anti-theist argument while not being an anti-theist, but specifically against trans people?
Of course not.
Okay,
But
so
I'm not-
why do you
but-
accept the lived experience of trans people to prove something about the natural world?
Because they're not talking about some external thing. They're talking about what's within.
Yes,
Yeah.
their
Talking about
internal
themselves.
experience.
Yeah,
Yes.
when a Christian tells me about Christianity, I accept the experience they had inwardly.
Right.
God
too.
touched my life. I understand that person feels God touched their life.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but
they're-
my question
but
is
I don't
why?
believe, I don't believe in that external God because nothing about what that person is saying to me expects me to change my views of reality on the basis of nothing. The only thing that changes is like, hey, here's who I am. Okay, I believe you.
The trans ideology
Right.
asks you to take for granted that people can be born in the wrong body. That
They are born in the wrong body, though, or at least a body that they don't appreciate. It's obviously true that people are born into bodies that they do not appreciate, and they wish that were different. That's like not. It's a normal human experience. See, when you say you talk to BIPOC and get their perspective, that's no different than asking people that believe unicorns for their perspective. That's true.
brains
Thanks for
can be
the
born in
biddies.
the wrong body.
I mean, you already agreed that gender dysphoria exists. So I mean, like that's
Yeah, but
basically
we don't.
that, right?
Well, we don't know what it is. I think it's a self-image processing problem. I don't think it's the brain's going in the wrong body. But that's
Sure.
kind of quibbling
I
over
mean,
the.
Well, and there are also
Sure, but so the way that so say it's a personal processing problem, whatever nerdy thing you think it is, you can name it whatever you want. Just because we use a colloquial term like being born in the wrong body, like they're not like literally saying like, oh, my Matrix brain was installed in the wrong meat droid. Like, so you just have like nitpicks at the edges of it, like a little fucking like you're like an eel just like slurping at the edge of some fucking like dead carcass. It's like so strange.
there are different treatments
Whatever-
that you can do for this thing called gender dysphoria too. Why are
mean,
we
the only-
selecting the treatment that all of a
the
sudden we're
only-
going to have you
the only other
switch your
transition-
biological sex?
The only other thing I've ever seen was just prescribe people lithium, which is basically just like turn them into a fucking lithium zombie. So I've never heard of any other treatments beyond that.
My
I don't know if they've tried that many other alternatives, but
I would like the level of skepticism people have in the atheist community for Christianity and other religions. They understand that yes, Christians exist, but their ideology,
I just feel
their
like
belief
that
system,
you have this-
isn't.
This isn't the same thing, and he's hung up on that he thinks being trans is similar to being Christian in some way, and he's just like it's such just like a terrible metaphor. It doesn't even get near to addressing like the experience of Christians or trans people. Like it's just such a failed metaphor that he can't get off it. He can't think any other way.
giving a true, accurate picture of the world. Yet
I mean,
people
you're
will
just
look at the.
throughout this entire sort of discussion, there's this tact of like, I want to liken trans ideology quote to religion, and
Thank you so much.
I just don't think the comparison is all that there.
Okay, what's
and I feel
what's
like-
off about it?
Because religion is like literally like, here is a layout of everything that's going on about the natural world.
Correct. Yeah, trans
Yeah.
ideology has that as well.
Nope.
No, how? Because trans ideology, which I don't even really agree with the terminology trans ideology in the
Well,
first place.
mostly it's called like gender ideology, but the idea that gender is a social construct, and they're trying
Well,
to change
I
it so
think
that
you're-
biological
you're
sex is a
social
social.
I mean, gender is a social construct.
well, no, but
Gender is a social construct.
you acknowledge it's not purely a social construct.
Yeah,
acknowledge
you
it's
saed
very
that.
No, I
biological.
never said it wasn't purely a social construct. It is purely
Right, but
a
that's
social
what
construct.
Adam meant. He meant that's what
Well,
gender
you-
ideology says.
hold on,
No,
let's
it's
just
purely a social construct.
social
look,
construct.
let's just be clear here.
All right.
Like
Let's be clear.
gender is a social construct part of it. What you did admit to is that biology plays a role in constructing that social construct.
Yep.
Yes, that's fair.
Okay, so yes, so I understand, and I think it's useful to actually separate gender as the social expression of
Because gender is
of
different in
biological
every
sex.
society. So
Well, I mean,
There's lots of overlap, but it is different. Yeah,
sure.
So-
But like the social roles that are inhabited by men and women in various societies have been
Yeah, but-
radically different from time to time. Like,
Well, I don't know if I'd say radically different.
Radically different. I would say radically different. Read a book.
I mean, there's
Different. Not radically different.
there's been times when women were at the head of society.
very
and men-
rarely though.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as common, but it does
Right,
exist.
but that
It
says
has
something,
manifested.
doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, but well, going to kind of the gender ideology. Like, I mean, I assume you're familiar with philosophy too, right?
Let me see. Philosophy too. Is that the Contra clone?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes,
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, she's
you're
a
gonna
really
get in big
yeah,
trouble for that.
Yeah, there you go.
TJ.
She's a really
I get in big trouble everywhere I go for everything I
true.
fucking say. So who gives a shit?
she's a really big trans YouTuber, has a massive platform.
Yeah.
We watched a video. We've
I
commented
actually,
a lot of her
if
videos.
it takes any heat away from me, I actually like her videos better than Contra's. So
Okay, well, it doesn't actually, but
No.
I think it's worse because
Damn.
one of the videos that we watched of hers, she was complaining about the UK medical system essentially,
Uh-huh.
and at the end of it, she says that herself and every trans person she knows
Mhm.
are all just looking up, when they go to talk to a psychologist or psychiatrist who's supposed to make the determination whether they have gender dysphoria or not,
Mhm.
and the only way that they can do this currently is through self questionnaires. And she says that herself and every trans person she knows are just lying and cheating. They'll just look up the answers to what the doctors wants to hear, and they'll just feed them whatever they want to know to get the treatments.
Sure.
And then on top of that, she doesn't think that gender dysphoria is even like a real thing, that there isn't any biological notion to any of this, and anyone for
Sure.
any reason should be able
This
to transition.
I feel like
And this idea, I just saying, I think this
sounds like something you
idea.
should take up with her because
Well, no,
I didn't say that
no.
shit.
The reason I'm bringing it up to you is because I feel like you have a. I understand that you have
I'm not gonna defend somebody else's positions on stuff.
different position. I'm not saying this is your position. I understand you have a
Right,
different position. What I'm saying is, I think that position is far more common in this field
That's incredibly disingenuous to that video. I assume so. I have no interest in defending it. I mean, go talk about that somewhere else then. Okay, cool.
of gender ideology and trans activism and trans
I mean, I
activism
don't-
than you're aware of.
I don't know what level of commonness that would have. I also don't know the reasoning behind that. I don't know the full context of when those remarks were made. So I mean, like
Mhm.
me trying to defend that or to try to just like gut instinct assess how common or uncommon that is.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, no. Listen, I understand. I'm just saying that that's why our
Yeah, it sounds like bad faith, doesn't it? This is again, these two continue to come across as bad faith, and they don't understand why. All the time. Everything they say is laced with bad faith. It's so surprising to me that they think, or at least project the facade of good faith. It's so weird.
Perception of this is very different than yours. Is that we view this as the more insidious nature of this.
Me too,
is kind
TJ.
Of more commonplace, and then you're viewing this as like a rare idea.
All right, well, here's what I feel. Here's my gut. If you want to know, like, my gut instinct.
Sure.
My gut instinct is that when you see a trans woman that doesn't pass, it makes you feel kind of icky. Like, ugh, I don't like that. That's really uncomfortable and weird looking to me. And instead of like interrogating that feeling and being like, huh, why do I feel that way? Instead of that, you're like, I must find some way to justify this feeling.
Fucking true. Fucking true. That's such a beautiful. That is the best thing he has said in this entire fucking debate, and he said some good things. That is 100% true. Every time TJ hits his vape, I feel that in my soul. True. That's such a good fucking line, chat. Let's hear it again. One more time from TJ. My dog.
I don't like that. That's really uncomfortable and weird looking.
This nature of this is kind of more commonplace, and then you're viewing this as like a rare idea.
All right, well, here's what I feel. Here's my gut. If you want to know, like, my gut instinct.
Yeah, me too.
My gut instinct is that when you see a trans woman that doesn't pass, it makes you feel kind of icky. Like, ugh, I don't like that. That's really uncomfortable and weird looking to me. And instead of like interrogating that feeling and being like, huh, why do I feel that way? Instead of that, you're like, I must find some way to justify this feeling.
Yep.
And, you know, you just go on the hunt and you find something. Oh, yeah, there you go. Gender ideology. Oh, it's basically a religion. Oh, the kids are being brainwashed into a cult.
That's so unfair.
I don't
That's
buy
so
it.
unfair.
No,
TJ.
wait.
'Cause
That's not
look,
unfair. That's not unfair. That's my gut feeling. You asked.
Even if that.
Fuck you for a second. Fuck you for a second.
That's
Shut
so
up.
unfair.
Hold on. No, shut up for a second. Because you asked for my gut instinct on this shit, so I gave you my gut instinct. I'm not saying that's what's happening.
Well,
I'm
hold
putting
on.
that out
Look,
there as a-
let's
let me
for the sake of
respond.
argument. Hold on. Let me
Let me
respond.
respond.
Sitch, just
Here you go.
like for the sake of argument. Even if that is completely true, and I think that is true of some people. Obviously, not Sitch and I. You know, we're above that. Okay,
Obviously not. I don't know, dude.
we don't get
I'm
those.
sorry. I was just
We
putting
don't
out
get.
there as an idea. You know?
We don't post hoc rationalize our way to some sort of truth. Even if that is true, and it is true in a lot of people's situation, it doesn't change the reality of the objective world, and that's what
Right.
we're talking about. So go ahead, Sitch.
Your objectivity is that you don't have gender dysphoria, so you don't know how it feels. So another person describes their experience to you, and you're to tell them no. Seems strange. John Boda. Any chance I could get a gift sub from someone, please? Who knows?
I don't.
Well, let me say.
Who knows?
I think what you're talking about. I think that is like
There's the a corn whale in these waters. It's still tonight, not a wind. We're trapped out here
the overwhelming majority of people
on the
who have
seas.
feeling not who are listening to our channel because our audience is all enlightened.
Yeah, our audience.
individuals,
Very
but other
smart,
people,
from
all
what
the
I've seen,
normies out there.
Cobblers
I do think
seas.
they're just
Tasha!
Fantastic day.
Tasha, you see a little in the distance a breach. Tasha, giving some juice to John Boda. It's happening.
mostly reacting to things from a gut intuitive level. And I agree with you. A lot of people that are anti-trans just do have these gut intuitions.
Happy International Women's Day, Cobbs. Does everyone feel pretty international? How international are you?
It has the juice.
Try corn muffins.
I think those came out pretty good.
They are pretty good. Thank you.
I hope you have a fantastic day.
Hey, will you perfectly broil my carnitas and then make me a delicious, like 2 tacos in exactly the way that I would make them if I wasn't working right now?
No.
Okay, well.
I love you. I wish I could like jack your brain into my brain.
Dr. Gamble! Oh, dude, we have such crazy sex.
Just like puppet.
Dude, if we could fucking...
I hope you have a fantastic day.
John... Wait. What's his... Is it John Cameron? What's the guy...
You think of like Avatar?
Avatar. What's his
Brain?
fucking name? Yeah, James Cameron. James
Yeah.
Cameron, Avatar, Fucktails?
Yeah.
Alright, I'm in. I'm all in. Wait, chat, they're giving me money.
Yeah.
Wait, Sarah, they're giving me money. Wait!
What?
It's about goddamn... Fucking... I don't care if you have sausage.
Completely, and they look to justify it, right? But that's from where I'm coming from, because I remember, when I was taking psych classes, a million years ago in high school, before this was,
I don't think I've met a lesbian in person that wasn't fun to be around. I've met a couple. I've definitely met some. I had a coworker. Her name was Denise. I hope she's doing well. Boy, what a crab. What a crabber.
even a thing anyone talked about. I had a psych teacher talking about all these issues, and I started having, we were having these conversations about all these things too, and it was just looked at as like a very medical procedure, back then. And then when all of a sudden this becomes big, and I see it becoming like this identity thing as opposed to just a medical procedure, that's when I'm like, this is where I start to see problems with it.
Identity thing? What the fuck?
Right.
So I don't think I'm operating under this like I'm just controlled by my disgust intuition.
Yeah, we don't do that.
There you go.
So
let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
This is a very important question. If you guys were to, do some introspection and you realize like we're actually trans, would you guys change your name to Madam and Bitch? That's what I want.
I mean,
that'd be a pretty good thing to do.
I think our channel would probably hit 1 million subscribers in like a month if we actually did
That's
that.
true.
If we both dual transition.
Well, it's in there. I mean, hey, look, you want to prove that this is all bullshit. Go ahead.
Why do you think I haven't done a face reveal yet? Obviously, I'm going to come out in more than one way.
The thing it could like
That is not why I think you did not do a face reveal.
I don't necessarily know that the science is settled on all this stuff.
Not it.
That's all I'm saying. So
I do have a serious question. Here's my serious question. Okay. To
sure. You said this was serious last time, so
this time it's actually
this time is really
right.
okay. Good.
So you're making the comparison between religion and trans stuff over and over again, right? So you say like this trans stuff is expecting me. Sorry, you said trans ideology.
Right.
Trans ideology is expecting you to believe something that's like scientifically unproven or whatever the fuck, right?
Correct. Yes.
So what specifically is that? Like, what is the thing that's like I cannot just believe this? Like, what is the thing that is that you're expected to believe that you look at and you're like, no.
It's a blank. We talked about it's a blank slate gender idea.
That people are born in the wrong body. I don't know that that's been proven. I mean,
what?
I think people.
It's irrelevant. That language is irrelevant.
I think people can aspire to change their sex. Like I have your position, basically a libertarian point of view. If adult decides, hey, I want to start living as the opposite gender, I say knock yourself out. Like I don't.
Someone trying to put into words an ephemeral concept and then delivering to you, my brain is in the wrong body. You took fucking, like, autistically literally, bro. Like, I have my fucking nitpicks about things. Like, I live with Sarah. She has, like, really particular things. Like, her autism manifests in certain ways, man. But this is, like, your shit, bro. I don't know how you can listen to someone say essentially an idiom and then hear them say, no, literally my brain is in the wrong literal body. They were swapped at birth. Like, and it's just, like, fucking blows up your worldview and you can't even fucking think past that. It's like, you can't imagine someone at all being a little bit sort of esoteric about their language when insofar as their fucking identity is concerned. You are either doing that or you're just entirely in bad faith, my dog. You can only be one of those things. This is why we don't talk. This is why I've never talked to these two. This exact thing. Every time I have an interaction with them or I see interactions they have with people, it's this. It's just like there's no headway here. This is why TJ titled this Attempting to Communicate with Them. There's a fundamental flaw in the way that you think. And I know you don't think there is. That's the nature of it. And there's nothing I can do to help you out of that. You got to do it your damn self. It can only be pointed out so many times. Like, but I think it's bad faith. I actually don't think it's just they're dum-dums. I think it's bad faith on purpose. I think they like the sort of fucking, I think they think it's edgy and they think it's like provocative and they like making people mad or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't think it rests in some sort of like fucking ideology, because if it does, then then it means that they're the dum-dums. I think they're nefarious, not dum-dums. I think they're nefarious specifically for content, yeah. And I think they know that on some level, but they'd never admit it. They would hide behind their ideological, sort of armor, which is what they are gonna do. They're worms. They're worms to me. So yeah, like that's just what it is. Until we just can't have a conversation. We're not actually having a conversation. We're talking around each other because you refuse to fucking just, interact.
The thing that bothers me is when people start stepping in and saying, oh, well, there's a scientific reason for this, and this person has some sort of, mental condition that society needs to step in and say that's okay. Like, we didn't come up with mental conditions for goth people. We didn't come up with mental conditions for punk rockers. They decided punk rockers were like, I want to
You agreed to gender dysphoria earlier. What the fuck?
live my life as a punk rocker. And they just did it. They didn't say society has to come in and validate me all day and basically, suck me off because this is my identity. That bugs the shit out of me.
Yeah, but you don't only need drugs and stuff to be a punk rock. I mean, I guess you
Well,
can't.
it's better with
Yeah,
drugs. Let's
sometimes.
face it. Come
There's,
on.
like the straight edge people and
You
stuff.
take
but,
that
you know,
back.
no, I mean, but like, you don't. There's not really a medical component to being a punk rocker or anything. Where there's definitely
Sure.
a medical component.
Well,
to
I mean,
being
you
trans.
would
Well,
argue that
wait
when,
a minute. Wait a minute.
you would argue.
Wait.
But there's-
I
okay, go
agree,
ahead.
but as you asked, what is part of the thing that we're talking about that we're supposed to accept? As
Well, that's
something?
There doesn't need to be a medical component to transness, but the medical component is what they seem to be pushing back on the most, and that's who it would harm. So that's why we have to argue. You know.
That's what I'm trying to get down
Right,
to.
but no. So, but I agree. It should be medical. Part of the thing that's unscientific is that the trying to demedicalize, being having gender dysphoria, trying to say, well, it's not a mental, not a
I
mental
don't
illness,
know.
not a medical condition.
I don't know
et
that I
cetera, et cetera.
accept that premise, though. I don't know
What
that
do
I
you
accept. I don't know that I accept the premise that they are trying to demedicalize it.
Me too.
Because I just.
Okay.
Me too. It lives in an almost purely medical space because that's where the denial of assistance is coming, right? I mean, obviously there's the societal impact and point, but then like we're talking about people's like literal fucking body health, right? So
Okay.
It just-
Okay. I just feel like from everyone that we look at from these
I mean,
conversations.
you're
they do try to
usually who the people are
demedicalize it.
talking about.
I don't know if it's because I'm high, but Sarah made these like corn muffins that I've been nibbling on a little bit. So I haven't really eaten today. And I literally haven't eaten today except for what I've eaten on stream in front of your face. I ate that one taco and then the top of this. And I don't know if I'm high or whatever. I can really taste the milk in this that she put in there. I've never tasted a milky, and not in a bad way. Like it's kind of nice. Give me the milks.
When they say they, by the way. So
Uh-huh. Well, wait. So why is there this big push to try to say, gender dysphoria is not a mental illness? What is that?
I mean, I don't know. What is that? Where?
Everywhere. What do you mean? walk into a trans forum somewhere on the internet and be like, is being trans a mental illness? And
I
everyone's
don't
gonna
think
say,
being,
no, fuck
I don't think being trans is a mental illness, but I mean, like, gender dysphoria is a mental illness.
Yep. Nailed it.
and,
right. Okay. But okay. So, well, okay. Well, I guess that gets into the question.
I mean, if you're gonna-
I'm
if
coming
you're
from a position, people shouldn't even be identifying as trans without gender dysphoria in the first place.
Well, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a.
King.
Oh no, are we just like, is that just impasse?
Do you
That-
think do you think that people that don't do any transitioning whatsoever, like medically with surgeries or hormones, should they still be able to identify as trans?
Yes. Don't care.
Yeah, but they gotta also acknowledge that shit can be pretty fucking confusing. If you look 100% like a dude and you're just like, I'm Sarah.
Well, why
It's like,
why let them
alright,
do that?
well,
That's also true. I think you will get people. Okay, so let's say the extreme position. That, again, it's always like, can you conceive of a person who is trans that doesn't do anything but change their name, right? Yes, that's probably not what's happening, right? However, yeah, I don't care. It's fine if someone is like, hey, how's that manifest for you? And you talk about it, but like. And it will confuse people when you try to explain it to them. And I think that's okay. I like the aspect of us sharing each other's experiences. I like talking to you guys about your experiences. I like listening to you guys be like, oh yeah, this is my experience with being, I don't know, two-spirit. And we get to talk about that because I don't know how that is. You know what I'm saying? I love the idea of that. And, we have those conversations sometimes. We'll do one during the subathon. We'll do it at like 500 subs or something like that. And then what should be our 1,000 sub goal, 1,500 sub goal, stuff like that? What do you think? Gender dysphoria spawns from repressing your trans identity and from lack of social and societal acceptance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. These guys just want to stop people from doing stuff so much. And TJ's just like, nah, and me too are just like, no, I don't care.
Why acknowledge that?
why not? What's it hurting? What's gonna happen?
Because it creates this weird situation where
creates
it'll,
confusion.
I mean,
Well,
a lot of things create a weird situation. If I walk into a fucking, a Walmart and I can fucking see the 600-pound woman's ass hanging off over the fucking sides of the little motorized scooter she's on, and that's an awkward situation. But
so when I say causes a weird situation, what I was saying is it creates a situation where essentially people who are pushing to demedicalize gender dysphoria do so under the guise of saying, well, trans is a mental illness. And they use this term confusion because most people, not the educated people talking or the educated people listening, but most people out there in the world, they don't know what gender dysphoria is. They think trans and gender dysphoria is the same thing. And that's how most people interpret it.
well, I mean, like,
Okay, so why would you legislate as if it is then? Or advocate for a society to act as if those are the same thing? You know what I'm saying?
if you're coming at it from my perspective, I don't want gender to exist, so I'm fine with whatever destroys it. If there's a period of confusion along the way, I'm fine with it.
What do you mean by that?
So price of doing business.
So men and women can.
He wants there to be no social pressure to adhere to gender behavior.
Right. I think that people should be assessed individually and not necessarily so much lumped into groups and tribes and these things.
Sure.
I think that everyone should be an island. I think that we need to kind of try to move away from groupthink to some extent.
You're so liberal. You're so right-wing liberal. I can't believe you.
All right.
Well, there's two positions I can see here though. There's position I want people to be able to dress and act and pursue whatever jobs they want regardless. I don't want to attach a social stigma, or a social gendered stigma to any job or activity whatsoever.
Or racial stigma or any other.
Right. And then there's
or job or activity, no, to people.
Have one bathroom for public bathrooms and everyone's going to use it, male or female. So
I'm in favor of that. Yeah. That's
fine.
So that's a much different position than just getting rid of gender stereotypes.
That's fine. Who cares? Whatever. We all shit.
Sure. No.
Well, there's been many societies that have these facilities, and
I don't think it is. I think you have to. I think one kind of necessarily follows the other.
Do you think
That's one baby that does have to be thrown out with the bathwater, in my opinion.
I'm sorry. So you said you want to throw out gender bathrooms. Is that include sports too, or just bathrooms and locker rooms?
All bathrooms, all locker rooms. I want to live in the Starship Troopers universe on that front.
I mean, that'd be nice. I don't think that's possible.
It is.
I don't think. Well, no, I don't think it is because.
It is.
No, it is. Trust me.
Okay, I don't think it's possible widespread because I think there is psychological value to people covering up their sex organs, and I think there's an evolutionary reason why people.
I've been going in the men's bathroom my entire life. I've never once seen a dick.
So you said locker rooms, though. I thought we were talking about.
Well, then have private changing areas like you do in a fucking dressing room then.
Okay, I don't see what the point of doing that is. But...
Why not?
Because people feel generally more comfortable not dressing in front of other sexes.
I mean, I don't feel uncomfortable undressing in front of any fucking buddy, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's you. Right,
yeah.
But that's you.
So yeah, give me the privacy booth. The people who are squeamish can get the privacy booth. The people who don't give a fuck can just do it out in the open.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. I got sidetracked and whatever.
Yeah, did you want to go back to anything?
You were distracted because we were talking about naked people.
We were talking about naked people. Oh no. Oh, so wait,
they got uncomfortable.
Does that apply to sports too, or is it just locker rooms?
I don't care. Everything. All across the board. I think that sports we should just start fucking. Instead of trying to do the gender thing, I think we should just do it by skill level. It's like, hey, can you reach
it already is that way.
Can you reach this level of proficiency in the sport? All right.
It might already be that way, but it's also sexed right now. So why keep the distinction then, Adam? Then why enforce it?
Then you can play. Well, and there's going to be teams where it's going to be like mostly women. There's going to be teams where it's going to be mostly men. But that's
but the women are going to be shunted to like much lower skill level leagues.
Maybe. Isn't that fine with you? Isn't that fine with you?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean,
and so will lower skilled men? And like, I think that'd be fine. I think it'd be fun.
I don't think most women appreciate that, but
well, they're gonna have to get used to it.
What is the benefit to doing that? Like, what is the purpose of doing
the benefit to doing that is that we don't have to live in a society where everything is decided and determined by gender, and you can do whatever you want.
But
the benefit of that is more freedom for individuals.
Yes.
I fully believe we'd have a society where people are not discriminated on the basis of their gender, like on an individual level. Like you meet a man or woman, you don't make a bunch of prescriptions about them. I really go in that society and still have sex segregated sports.
No,
you don't think that's possible?
No.
Okay. I don't know.
Just no. I don't agree with you.
Fair enough.
I agree.
You said the thing I want to go back to is we were talking about I guess this comes up. We were talking about the left.
I mean,
and right.
you basically just did a separate but equal, in my opinion, right?
Yep.
Like yeah.
Well, we've literally accepted that for sex as being fair and just.
But is it?
I think it is. I think most people alive think it is. Women aren't the ones complaining about this. It's
there's tons of women complaining about how their sports are not treated the same, actually. But okay.
Well, no, they're complaining that they don't get enough press. So they're not complaining that they're not playing against males.
Yeah, right. Sure, fair. Well, they have complaints.
Sure, but it's about but they want society to basically view female sport physical competition as being as valued as male competition.
No, they aspire to something like that. It's more about the equity of it, right? It's more about it's more about salaries and protections because the NBA is specifically this happens around the WNBA, right? The NBA also shares revenue with the WNBA. It's sort of a subsidiary of it, and they reinforce each other. And they're like, the argument is that the NBA PA, the NBA Players Association, and the WNBA PA, the same thing, but for the women's league, they should be able to afford similar protections for each, and the way that the salaries work, because they don't make as big a cut as the men, for instance. Requisite. They're not going to make as much money either way because of the revenue involved at this point with the leagues, but that's a symptom of being so new and underfunded for so long. And also because it's a women's sport and there's sexism, and also it's a different game, and some people might not be appealed to it, right? And that's fine. You don't have to. You don't have to like any sports. It's okay. But that is not what that is like a more nuanced situation. Has a lot to do with the how the NBA works, the marketing involved, the money involved. Anyway, and also that a lot of the players have to go overseas to make ends meet.
And honestly, the best ally they got right now is trans women, because all of a sudden a bunch of people pretending to care about female sports that never
There
did
you go.
before.
There
So
you go.
it's all part of the fucking plan to get
They're
female
looking at it
sports
all
taken
wrong.
seriously.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
But going back to the unless you want to say something else about the trans topic, I want to
I'm
ask you about
good.
how you're defining left and right. How are you defining left?
Are you done?
I'm basically just boiling it down to like, are you pro or anti-capitalist?
That's base 2.
Really,
Interesting.
single
Interesting.
factor.
What is
Yeah,
the
I mean, that's the
I mean, I agree.
I've tried. I mean, look, when it comes to these political affiliations and shit, there's a million and one people that'll tell you a million and one different. I mean, if you look at what is broadly called the online left, the ideological similarity from one person to the other is almost fucking nil. Like it's just like insane how little fucking commonality there is. So I've literally just had to boil it down to the most basic of questions, which to me is like, are you pro-capitalism or are you anti-capitalism?
I agree.
doesn't that create like weird situations where like technically the Nazis would be left wing at that point?
I mean, the Nazis did come out of like a left-wing fucking social movement, so
I know they did, but the left
I
doesn't
don't-
usually like to acknowledge that.
I don't think that the Nazis. I ultimately don't think they were left-wing, but I think that they used left-wing animus to propel themselves forth.
But
God, I don't want to talk about Hitler right now. That is more complicated than that, but that's okay. That's okay. I agree with left being anti-capitalist and right being pro-capitalist, because at this point, that seems to be the crux on which everything else turns. Right? You just got 7 ads. Let's go. 7 whole ads. They better have given me the big bucks. I hate that shit. I wish they would get rid of ads altogether. Obviously, that's a pipe dream. Never happening. They came for the communists first. Yeah. Anyway. They used some populist messaging in left-wing spaces to trick them, similar to the way that like Jackson Hinkle, Haas, infrared, Russia, Nazi, tanky lefties operate. It's the same thing. So when TJ says left-wing movement, it's sort of correct. It's sort of correct. Nationalist, Nazi, left-wing, tanky people that ally with full-on fucking capitalist fascists. So, like,